Hi everyone, welcome back to Poetology. It's been a while since I posted a video, but I'm back now with more ideas, and I'm glad to be on YouTube again. Very often when I tell people that I have a YouTube channel about poetry, they ask me if they can go there and hear me read my poems, and I always answer, no, it's about other people's poetry. But actually, I thought it would be a good idea to share some of my own work today. And one reason why I haven't done it any earlier is that usually when you post one of your poems online, that means that it cannot be published by a magazine. Most of them want to have fresh new work when you submit. So I didn't want to disqualify any of my poems for publication. But what I am going to do is I'm going to read you poems that are already published and avoid the entire issue, and also that means that you will know journals that you can submit to and that are really interesting. And I will post all of the links below. The very first poem of mine that was published in a small journal titled TENEBRAE, and it's a bit bright for this picture, but it's basically a little pamphlet-like journal. And the poem that I sent to this journal is titled The Studio, and that's an earlier poem compared to the others that you're going to hear today. So it's going to be a bit more like what I used to write. And it's interesting to see that I have evolved a little over the years. This poem comes with a content warning for eating disorders and self-harm. It refers to some dark subject matters. So if you are not up for that, just skip ahead 1 minute or so, and the other poems will be easier to handle, I think. The Studio. Sitting on the sofa, pillows on the floor, we unwrap clean sustenance from plastic bags with reverent devotion as the ceremony takes shape in the precise arrangement of dishes, napkins, journals open. With scissors and glue, we press our dreams into collages and watch our fingers pick at ritual provisions on the central table. Then later, the red clocks of our eyes shut down. We twitch a leg to filter time passing along the bumpy rhythm of unpredictable hearts. While light-headed, vision blurred, thin wraiths rise green in curling swirls, and ashes utter the silent curse to the fairy song of clanging glass. Disappearing in turns, we cast bloody spells with blades, or make sacred offerings of second-hand food to the toilet bowl. But dusk is calm, understated, lips the colour of dawn, and a hunger satiated until our wake is done. My second and third poems were published by HARANA Poetry. HARANA Poetry is an online journal that publishes writers who write in English as a second or parallel language. So if you are multilingual, this is a great place to send some work. Or if you're using phrases or expressions from different dialects or languages. So please click on HARANA Poetry below and have a look at the journal. They're publishing amazing poets and a lot of starting poets, people who are just starting out like me. I was commissioned for the first issue and participated in the launch as well, which was amazing because I was still very, very, very early on in my publication record. So I felt very honored to be part of this really cool project. And I've also interviewed one of the co-editors of HARANA Poetry in an earlier video, so I will link it below. The first poem is titled Wild. Sleep alone in the woods on a bed of rustling leaves when no quiet lies. You, displaced animal with animal needs, tiredness a blanket full of holes. One brief break in the cloud cover, and the moon tears into the tent like a searching torch. Walk to the edge of the trees, a shadow upright among shadows. Luminescent daisies and the blue hoot of the owl are gaps for you to fall into. In the morning, you won't recognize this place. And the second poem is titled To the Lost. I wear the dead one's name in a string of skulls flowering around my neck. Its whispered promises of frail nests concealed in chalky earth. In the garden, early morning blackbird trills for the skeleton we all know is buried under the apple tree. By now, the blue cornerstone deposited by glaciers has moved full circle around the house. The ravens, the herons, the beavers have all made their way here again. We've come back to the place where our sighs thicken around us, gathered into the horizon line. So these two poems were written with a more natural / magical theme in mind, I think, and also I wrote them thinking about Switzerland and some of the wild areas in Switzerland. The first poem, Wild, refers to a night, or one of the nights that I spent alone sleeping in the forest, not very far from my parents' house, and the experience of being woken up by the full moon and sort of freaking out. The next poems are a bit more experimental in form, and they were published by DATABLEED. And DATABLEED is also an online journal. It's an amazing place to go if you like to write very inventive poetry, and if you like to merge the visual with the text. They really like that sort of thing. They're also linked below the video. And they published 3 of my poems. I've made another video about the technique that I used in the first 2 poems, which is a type of erasure poetry or blackout poetry. So in that case, I erased part of a text with some white Tipp-Ex, but the more usual way of doing it is to use a black marker to cross things out. You can also check out that other video where I wrote another poem and just talk through how to do that. The first one is Cuts. Dark places before night ache. Hands deep, crystal bubbles dart for love to leave heat. The second one is Bing. Tension stakes overhead. It's never strange, but still explosive. Stoop, motherfucker. And the third one is called The Family. The family is burning. Need another disappear. We are shut. No edges. Unknown. DATABLEED also published another one of my poems titled Dream File 13, which I wrote after Caroline Bergvall. Dream File 13. Sped down landslides of snow-white scapes, to skies of blood river hunting, to the flat-out valleys, to trails of littered railroads, to flakes jolting with dirt, to smears of rain, to the flashing nightlights dangling down panes of thriving mould, unravelling cottage, they be shelters, nestling among twigs of electric wires like fireworks of starlings, these familiars, these struggling clouds, these alarm bursts, these crinkled sheets of sleet, these lines carry the weight of lies, these interrupted maps, these press people to the edge, the limit, the wall, these thoughts homing in like prisoners call to earth, to no one. And the last one is the most recent publication that I had, and I'm super happy about it. It's the latest issue of MAGMA Poetry on avatars, and my poem Reflected is published in it. So I will read this out to you. Reflected. Flights of shade, an outline pinned with weight at the edges. This perforated surface of skin clings to exclusions of self, the body cut off from its shell, as late nights in Soho disappear under harsh lights, while I, hermaphrodite, neither this nor there. This last poem talks about the body and having a difficult relationship with one's body. So these are all of my published poems at this point. I'm still early on in publishing poetry, so I just have these poems out in different magazines, and I hope I can get more soon and read them out to you too. If you are interested in hearing more about the process of writing these poems, that's something I could easily work on. I could actually present to you what it's like, how I think about things, how I develop the ideas. It's also interesting that several of them were conceived of in poetry courses. I've done a lot of courses with the poetry school. I say a lot, maybe 4 or 5. But every time I've produced work that I'm really happy with. So that's a great way actually of encouraging yourself to write and having a structure and trying things that you wouldn't necessarily do by yourself. Yeah, so I'd be happy to make videos about the writing process and explore maybe one poem at a time, how I made it happen basically. If you're interested in what I do and you want to write poetry yourself, have a look at my website as well. I offer creative mentoring for people who want to make time for art and writing, or who need a bit of accountability or more of a follow-up, or to work through obstacles in their creative process. So have a look and contact me if you're interested. I'll make more videos for you very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!